AI is evolving fast. Are you ready? Meet AI at Flightbase, your weekly hub to learn, upskill, and stay ahead in AI world. Let's dive into today's session.
Let's go ahead with today's agenda. Today we are starting with the AI news for the day. And the first AI news for the day is having the VS Code extension for Claude Code. Though the framing looks a little weird, but Claude Code is right now in VS Code. And for those of you who've been using VS Code actively for the past how many ever years, it's become much more easy because the capabilities of Claude codes like subagents, agents, and MCPs and all of that capabilities have finally gotten into VS Code, and you can do it much more easily. And a lot of other things like parallel task runnings and all of those stuff can also be done easily under VS Code at this point. Pretty cool feature. Coming up next is Devon Review. It's something that I saw recently, and they have reimagined the complete interface for understanding complex PRs. So for example, you just send out a PR and then it understands the entire PR, the code and everything as such. It reviews and it comes back to you with potential errors, or it comes back to you with potential, bugs that can come up later and all of those stuff. So pretty cool for reviewing your entire code and PR. And I think at Flightbase as well, a lot of our developers have been trying to solve for this problem. So makes sense. And next is Langsmith's Agent Builder. So basically, I think they already had an agent builder before, but right now what they've done is create a lot of templates, and they've made a complete template library where you can deploy ready to deploy agents for any companies and for any domains. For those of them who are non-coders as well, it gets a lot more easier. So do have a look. And they brought in a lot of integration. So a lot of you must already know about Stitch. Stitch was released by Google almost 4 months back, maybe, but that was basically for designing the front end of any app. So right now they've brought in Stitch MCP server. So what this does is pipe the Stitch designs directly into your favorite tools. So Google's anti-gravity, of course, that's what they would say, but into any of your IDEs without leaving your IDE. So that's basically a good thing. The next, last but not the least, I had just touched upon this the last time when I said my news, but Ollama plus Google Code, just made the AI coding completely free, and it runs completely local. So we have been having a lot of queries on, data security, about running AI models right on your system, about all such issues. So this makes it all the more easier, and I just wanted to address it over here so that for those of you who have been always asking in past few webinars of ours about data security, maybe this solves your issue. So do have a look and let us know what you think. So that's mostly about it from the AI news. I'll be sharing the links of these in the chat. But while I do that, I would like to invite the speaker of the day, Sarvi.
So what I'm going to show today is how I've used Claude skills. So Claude Code has the concept of skills. I'm hoping everybody knows about this by now, that how the Claude Code almost a couple of months back, they released the concept of skills, wherein you can pre-package a lot of your standardized workflows into a set of MD files, and then you can invoke the skill during your workflow so that it knows what it needs to do with the context that you have provided. Earlier, Claude had commands as well as agents, but in case of commands, it would only follow certain generic things. It would be a shorter set of commands that you can give. Skill kind of expands that significantly. And something that I realized while I was building this skill was the fact that I was able to even invoke Python scripts, interestingly, via the skill itself, which was not possible with commands. And agents a lot of times are good when it's a very dynamic sort of a problem that you want to solve. And it may even end up quote unquote hallucinating, but that's the need of the task that an agent is given. Skill kind of sets very much in the middle and whenever you want to kind of automate your workflow. And in this case, the workflow that I was kind of automating is something that I hope that a lot of developers on the call would kind of relate, is overall automating the project management aspect of any software engineer's life cycle. So software engineers on the call, just give me a thumbs up. I hope this is a problem that you guys face on a daily basis, wherein there is a product manager or you have a project manager who is always asking you questions during your daily sync ups, that what's the status of your project, what's the status of this task, when it is due, is it done, why have you not updated your Jira, or why have you not updated your Notion or Linear, whatever project management tool that you use. And that happens with me as well. So this is something that I genuinely feel that it's kind of boring to kind of get into all these tools and manually updating. To begin with, generating this entire task list, so all of these tasks that needs to be implemented for this particular release, so overall release management, creating all these tasks, subtasks, and then descriptions within each of these tasks in itself is such a boring and Herculean job for me that a lot of times I don't do that, which leads to obvious other issues in terms of project management. So while I was building the skill, I was able to generate. So this entire stack that you are able to see, let me drop this. Yeah, so this entire page that you can see, so all these epics, themes, tasks, so even within tasks, all the descriptions that are mentioned over here, everything that you see is 100% generated by the skill that I have used. Apart from that, I also use this skill heavily for modifying, say, the status. So this entire project was kind of generated last week. A lot of items have not been picked up yet, but once I start working on it, and I use Claude Code heavily during my development phase, which means that the session, the Claude Code session already has context of whatever is it that I'm trying to build. And it already has the context of, say, today I have picked up, say, task 111, set up Office HA test bench. Now, once I have completed this task or I have picked this task up, I can just write a command in Claude that, hey, use the skill to update this task. And I'll give a demo as well on how it exactly works. Even a lot of times when say early in the morning I come up, I do not have my memory is refreshed. I do not know what should be my high priority items based on the due dates or based on the impactness of any certain item. So as you can see, there are so many different items. A lot of them are assigned to me, a few of them to my colleagues. So these are the ones which are assigned to me. So I can ask that based on the priorities, what are the top 5 items that I be picking up today to ensure that there's minimum delays. So even those daily rituals early in the day or later on in the evening. So say, for example, once say a session is over, so I can ask Claude that, say, this Kubernetes health dashboard is now has been picked up, so it will move the status to do, or it has been completed, or say certain details have to be added in the task, then that can be done, or certain comments have to be left. So ClickUp has this feature wherein once you open a task, you can add comments to it, so that rest of the developers who are also working on it, they also get notifications, and it stays as a knowledge base as well for future scope. So enough said, I'll give a brief demo of what has been implemented. So this is my Claude Code workspace. So this is, again, so I had asked, so in the interest of time, so this was the query that I gave, like, use the ClickUp on-premise skill to fetch epics, all the epics present in the space. So let's say, for some reason, Claude is quite slow today. Let's hope. So while this happens, any questions till now?
Sharvashish, hi, this is Devyani. Maybe this was covered in one of your prior webinars, but will you also be demonstrating how to build a Claude skill in the session today, or?
All right. So although it's not, I was not planning to do that, but I can show that in brief.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anything else? So I think Nitin Kamble has also mentioned the same, that can I create a new skill? So I'll show that in brief. Anything else that, based on all of this, anything else that you guys are expecting? So I'll try and cover that in next 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a bit slow, but yeah, so you get the drift. So right. So it was able to fetch all these tasks and subtasks that there were. So now it has tasks 1.411. So quorum service failover testing. And say, for example, if I say that I have already picked this task up, I would have to skip this a bit. It's taking a bit of time. Yeah. So what's next? So I'll share what was my typical workflow while building the skill. And I'll also share how the skill looks like. I hope my ID is visible to everyone. By default, so whenever you are creating a skill in Claude Code, so I've created this ClickUp on-premise skill. So it will create this skill.md file. So in this skill.md file is typically your root file that at any moment in time, Claude kind of refers to whenever you invoke a skill. So this skill MD file has its name, its description, so what it is supposed to do. So when to invoke this skill, typical basic documentation on how to use this skill is part of this skill.md file. So the problem, when I started using this ClickUp, when I was trying to build this skill, so one of the major challenges that I faced while building this skill was typically what is the workflow? So the workflow is you would ask Claude that, hey, this is the problem for me. I'm trying to solve this problem, and for this, I'm planning to build a skill. Why don't you build the skill for me? I'll share whatever details that you need. Let's jam a bit on how the skill will look like, and then build the skill right away. Typically, for whatever reason, Claude Code starts generating commands. So that's one of the typical problems that you would face in your early days when you're trying to build a skill for the first time. So something that Claude Code has done. So I'm assuming everybody knows about plugins. So Claude Code has all this. It has its own plugin store. Via plugins, you can also install a lot of off-the-shelf skills that are already listed and present in the marketplace instead of creating your own. But yes, if you want to create your own skills, that is also possible. So in this marketplace, for whatever reason, everything is slow right now. So I'll share it verbally. So in this marketplace, there is a skill that specifically Anthropic has kind of released, and that's name of that skill is it's a skill builder skill. So let me share that over here. So this is a standard repository that you can readily start using for Claude Code. And in this, there is the skill creator. So I would recommend to use the skill creator skill while you are trying to generate any skill that is relevant for you. As you can see, there are all these skills that are all provided by Anthropic by default. So say, for example, you have to read a PDF or generate a PDF or read or generate PPTX or similar other skills. And similarly, right now, there are so many different plugin stores outside of Anthropic itself, and they have also published their own skills. So ideally, I would recommend you to use Claude or Gemini to research about an existing skill, try and use it. Once you use those skills, you will identify that, okay, this skill is not working for me for so and so reason. And then you can provide this feedback to Claude so that it can use that as a reference. So say, for example, I used Notion. So there is Notion, they have generated their own skills, and I gave the code. So this skill folder, so say this PDF skill, all of these are open source code. So skill MD, forms, references, even the scripts that are being invoked. So these are the Python scripts that the skill can invoke internally. And all of this context is now with my Claude Code session, that this is how Notion has built the skill. Using skill creator, now let's modify this Notion skill that would work for me. And that's when I realized that, okay, so these Python scripts can be utilized. Now you would ask that why should I use Python scripts, or why to use, say, ClickUp MCP versus a ClickUp skill. So what's the difference between the two? So one of the startling realization that I had while building this skill was, by default, if I use a ClickUp MCP, and typically when it comes to Claude Code, it's just 200K tokens per session. So by default with ClickUp MCP, it would easily take up around 12,000 tokens, so 12K tokens. And instead, if my particular on-prem skill, it only takes around 100 unit of tokens, because by default, what Anthropic has done is skills never get loaded completely. It is always built via a progressive loading fashion, which means if and only if you actually utilize a skill, then it will go inside the skill and it will load the relevant functionalities, which is relevant for your particular workflow. Otherwise, it won't load. But when it comes to MCPs, it doesn't matter. It will stay loaded in your session, or you would have to disable it. But if you disable it, you won't be able to use that at all in your session. So it's like binary in case of MCP, and it's 12K tokens versus 100, which is a significant difference. Apart from that, I also observed that with ClickUp MCP, for some genuine reasons, I believe that ClickUp has created some sort of rate limits. So I was not able to run MCPs via my parallel agents. So whenever these parallel agents were trying to bombard the ClickUp MCP endpoints, I was getting a lot of API overload errors. But when it comes to direct API calls, I was able to do that because probably there's lesser restrictions in direct API calls compared to MCP. So that was also a major benefit for me. In my typical ClickUp MCP, the way I have structured is, the ClickUp skill, the way I have structured is that it will go for so I've created these scripts. So let me share my scripts again. So I've created these scripts. So say create task is a Py script. Fetch tasks is the task is a Python script that was triggered when I asked it to fetch all the tasks lists of my certain epic. And if the command that I gave to update the status of a certain task, so update task script gets utilized over there. Now there are of course limitations to such Python scripts because it's now very much hard typed. So say for example, and this is something which is work in progress, it does not have the field to fetch due dates in this say fetch task.py file. Now this effectively my workflow will fail. So if I try and fetch the due date information for each and every task, in those cases, the skill has been commanded in such a way that in those cases, it will effectively use the MCP, the ClickUp MCP for that particular task. And I'll learn that, okay, this is something that I really need during my day-to-day tasks, that I need the ability to have due dates. I'll then ask Claude that this is how you want to fetch this particular information. Why don't you update this Py file? And that's how, so this Python file is now pretty complex, but that's not how it all started. So this Py file was quite small when I started, but now because of all these improvements that I keep on doing, this has grown up significantly. So I use the MCP to kind of fetch relevant information, and then I update the PI file accordingly. Another interesting thing that I did over here was this workspace config. So you can create these configuration markdown files as well. And this entire skill now is able to leverage my workspace and the configuration of my workspace. So on-premise is the name of the ClickUp workspace, what is the space ID, what are the key lists that are present in it. Say, for example, I am kind of managing multiple spaces. So if there are multiple spaces, then all the different relevant information can be captured in this config, so that all these PI files remain kind of independent. It does not have the hard-coded context of your spaces, and all of that context is actually part of the config file. And yeah, so which means now you can kind of very much copy this entire skill and use it in a different project, which is not going to talk to on-premise space, but it's going to talk to a completely different space. But it has the overall same structure within the ClickUp as well. So this was something which was also quite good while I was trying to kind of build this entire thing from scratch. Yeah, I think I'm done. So I'm sorry, my Claude Code is running a bit slow, so I won't be able to show how to do it. But practically speaking, if you use the Skill Creator plugin, and then all you have to do is just talk to Claude. It will do that for you. And if you're not very much comfortable with, say, Claude Code CLI, you can even so Claude recently came up with Cowork. So this is the Cowork. So I'm using the Claude desktop. So with Claude Cowork, it makes it a lot more easier to kind of manage your local systems. So you can configure any certain project to work on your local folder, and you can give commands. You can configure your skills. You can create skills via your Cowork as well. And of course, there is Claude Code in Claude Desktop as well. So if CLI tools give you heebie-jeebies, then kind of you can use the desktop utility to create whatever skills that you need. The only recommendation I would give is use the skill creator skill. Otherwise, Claude will not do a good job in creating the skill, and it would be frustrating for you. Right, that's about it. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, I do have one. So when you were doing your demo, I could see that you typed in your editor that you have picked up such and such task and asked it to update ClickUp, right? But that is still you manually letting it know that you have started working on a particular task. Is there a way to build intelligence into this workflow wherein it will go into, let's say, your Git or whatever, and see that you have started working, and then update the status, update the progress? Have you experimented with that?
Yes, so that's one of my to-dos. So the idea is that in my CI pipeline, so whenever a PR is raised, so today we use @Claude in our CI pipeline for doing our code reviews. I mean, specific pinpointed code reviews that we do for PRs. My next task is that once this entire skill works relatively well and reliably in my local machine, I'll deploy it in my CI pipeline as well, so that whenever a PR is raised, it will identify relevant items from the commit messages as well as PR description, and then accordingly it will update the ClickUp on-premise, the ClickUp workspace as well.
That will work for the completion status though, right? When a PR is raised, that means essentially the development team is done. That's when you would raise a pull request, right? But for the initiation, will it still be more or less manual like you were showing in the demo?
Got it. I mean, considering that the tokens typically I mean, the weekly session and daily token limits that Claude provides, it's very limited. So this is not something a big challenge for me to kind of automate this as well. I'm fine by manually commanding it. I do not want it to keep running all those checks, although it gave me that suggestion while I was building this skill that do you want me to do that? So, I mean, the suggestion was that while I am developing, so it will keep listening for certain keywords from the command that I give to Claude, and based on it, it will always check whether I need to update the ClickUp or not. So it did mention that, but in the interest of saving the tokens, I for now I stopped it from doing that, because otherwise it takes a bit of time as well as tokens to actually fetch all of that relevant information.
Got it.
So for now, I've kept it manual. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, what I am taking away from this is that it is possible to build automation to whatever extent you want, but you should be prudent and weigh the pros and cons in terms of how many tokens will you need to spend to automate something that even if you end up doing manually is not going to be a big productivity drag, right? There, maybe in the interest of saving tokens, you might still go ahead and keep some part of your workflow manual, and then part of it could be automated. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, typically. So in my workflow, so ClickUp is something that I typically only touch earlier in the day or later half in the evening. Otherwise, I typically do not need to update any of it. So which is like a couple of manual items, which is fine for me. But yes, probably and most likely in other workflows. So it's also one of the skills that I'm trying to build. It's in an early phase. It's a feedback mechanism. So the idea of that skill is like, once say I use Claude to plan and design a certain workflow and it's implementing it, and I identify that during the planning phase these are the certain things that was missed by my my front-end design agent. So I can use the feedback skill to update the front-end design agent during the workflow itself, and I don't need to manually call it whenever I'm giving a feedback to. So no, this is not something that we discussed. Remember, we were talking about this, or okay, this was completely missed during the design phase. We should have thought about how this store needs to be designed correctly to make it more efficient. So whenever I give such feedback, I do not necessarily call the feedback skill. It will catch up to it and automatically then propose an update to the agent. So, but that is not something which is yet built. But yeah, that is where I believe the automation workflows are definitely required.